Today's August the 4th, 2024, and I wanted to go over the new NAR rules with you one more time. We've done a couple of videos on that subject in this channel, Living in Lakewood Ranch, but today it's very important because next week is going to go into effect from our local MLS, which is the multiple listing service, about removing the offer of compensation from the MLS service. So I'm going to show you what the old way was, what the new way is going to be, and how we're going to navigate that market. Hello, it's Mark Boehmig, Michael Saunders and Company. In this channel, Living in Lakewood Ranch, we cover all the areas around Lakewood Ranch, from Sarasota up to Bradenton and from Siesta Key to Anna Maria Island. Today, I wanted to talk to you about what's going on with the new NAR rules, and then also share with you what those new rules are and why we're at this point. So let's dive in and see what the new NAR rules are. As you can see right here, it says the compensation offers moved off of MLS. That means that whatever the co-broke fee was that pays for the buyer side of the transaction is no longer going to be populated on the MLS. And I'm going to show you in just a minute how those numbers were displayed for the agents. And then the next thing that it says is there has to be a written agreement for MLS participants to be able to show buyers properties here in anywhere in Florida. As a matter of fact, this is nationwide. So this is going to be in all 50 states in the United States. Now, 18 states right now already have a buyer broker agreement in place, which they use. Well, Florida was not one of those states. So what's going to happen is that a buyer broker relationship is going to have to be signed by each buyer that wants to go into a property. So there's going to be several different types of buyer broker relationships, and I'm sure there's going to be new models, and we'll discuss that in just a minute. So let me show you how the offer of compensation was originally displayed for agents knowing what they were going to be paid for getting a house under contract and closed. So you've probably seen these before. This is a standard MLS listing. And it's usually 2 or 3 pages long. I just brought this up so that you could see what it is that typically the buyer's agent gives to the buyers when they're out looking at property. It tells you all about the size of the property, the dimensions, and all of that. Let me show you how the MLS works. This is a typical listing information sheet that a buyer would have. They would be given this by their real estate agent. Now, there's 2 of these. One is for the real estate agent and one is for the public. The one that's for the public does not talk about things that are behind the scenes. They didn't talk about what the commissions were. They didn't talk about what type of entry was it at the house. They didn't talk about whether it's vacant, those kind of things that the public did not see. Now, one of the other things that the public didn't see that is on the realtor side, but not on the public side, was this. And this is usually on the back side, on the last page, and it talks about compensation. So as you can see right here, transaction broker 3%. So I went through and I just picked out 5 or 6 at random to see what kind of percentages there were. So the next one I came up with was also 3%. And then the next one was 2 3/4%. So if I was an agent representing a buyer, I knew that the fee that the offer of compensation from the seller to the buy side was 2 3/4%. Another one came in at 3%. One came in at 2.5 less $495. And you wonder, why is that? Well, that's another thing that just goes on between the agents, but that was probably the fee that the brokerages charge that agent per transaction, and they try and get the buy side to take care of that. The next one that I pulled was at 3%. So what happens is that a client would come to you and they'd say, hey, I want to see these 6 or 7 properties. The client had no idea as to what was the offer of compensation from the seller, and the buyer really never did pay that. So I think that the whole reason the Department of Justice got involved in this was because they felt that that was not fair. They felt that the buyer would pay their side and the seller would pay their side. Now, that may be true, but that's going to be a big shift in the market if all of the buyers are now going to pay their side of the transaction. My opinion is that probably is not going to happen. We'll wait and see. And I've been wrong before, but I think what will happen is because we have so many listings that the sellers are still going to offer compensation to the buy side. So how are we going to know what that is? Well, that's a good question. Now it's not going to be offered on the MLS anymore. So our agents going to put it on their websites. Our brokerage is going to put it on their websites where it's public facing, where everybody gets to see what is going to be transactional. What is the fee that the seller is offering to the buy side? It could be zero. They could just say, hey, I'm only paying the listing side. You take care of your buy side. I don't think that's going to happen, but that is still a possibility. Everything is negotiable, just as you saw on the previous slide where we had different rates at 2.5% less 495 and 2.75% and 3%. So that's always been negotiable. What is it that's going to go forward? Well, we're not sure. But what we do know is that let's just say that you contact with your agent. You have to sign a buyer broker relationship form. Doesn't matter who it is with. And it tells you how that agent's going to be compensated. And that could fall onto your side of a ledger. But what I think is going to happen is that most of the agents are going to be calling the listing agent that they have the buyer for and say, what is your offer of compensation? And is there any? And they'll find that out. And then they're going to supply that information to the buyers. So the buyers, if you think about it from their standpoint, if they see 15 houses and 13 of them are paying whatever that buyer brokerage fee is, and 2 or 3 of them are not, I have an idea they're probably going to go towards the ones that are offering the full compensation. Although I still wouldn't sell myself short. I don't know that I would negate seeing a house because the seller is not offering compensation, because they might say to their agent that's listing the property, hey, let's see if somebody will bring us an offer and we can negotiate what that fee would be. But that's yet to be seen. So I personally think that most of the sellers are still going to offer the compensation because they've built it into the price that they're listing their home for. Now, the other thing that we're going to have to pay attention to is the buyer broker relationship. So that tells the agent that is the common communication between the agent and their client, what their fee is. Now, that could be a flat rate fee, that could be a percentage fee. Typically, it has been a percentage of the sale amount for the property, but everybody is going to be different. And so it's going to be up to the buyers to source that out and find out what they feel is the best for them. Now, I would imagine, and I don't know this for sure, but I would imagine the seasoned, good, educated agents are probably going to still charge the same fee that they've always had in the past, because they feel that their value that they bring to the transaction is worth it. And if you really look at the numbers, 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever the fee is, in the overall part of the transaction, it's not going to be that much of an amount that we can't overcome, either through negotiations, some type of coverage where either the seller is paying for it, where part of it comes from the buyer, or whether it's piled into some other type of arrangement from the sale of the property. Now, I did put something together and I have it listed up on my website, and I want to show this to you. What this is this is a buyer's guide checklist. And I think that my clients will find it very helpful because it goes through the entire buying process as far as what to expect when you get a house under contract. From the very first time that you meet with your agent, you get in with a consultation, then you go in and talk to them about your budget, whether you've been pre-approved or whether it's cash, the additional financial considerations. So this is a step-by-step guide that takes you through the entire buying process, all the way to the time when you get ready to close, and then when you are ready to move. Maybe you're moving from an existing home to another home, so it even covers the moving tips. So I'm going to put a link to this particular buying guide down in the description below so that you'll have access to that. And then when you get ready to come and buy a house, we'll be ready to service your needs. So if you find yourself coming to the Lakewood Ranch area and you're looking for a good agent to help you navigate the process of buying a home, I'd be honored and look forward to speaking to you about that process. And if you're someone here that lives in the Lakewood Ranch area and you're considering selling your property, I'd be honored to speak with you about that process also, and how we can benefit you to get the best dollar for your house, no matter where the commission part of the transaction is coming from. Mark Boehmig, Michael Saunders and Company.